Hello and welcome. We're talking today about drafting, and I'm going to give you 4 rules. They're not from me, they're not unique to me, they're from somebody else. 5 rules that must be your kind of guiding principles for everything that you want to draft. These are the following. First of all, get all the facts first. If you don't have all the facts, you can't do anything. A lot of people think it's all about the law. No, it's mostly about the facts. Secondly, once you've got the facts and you know them, then look at the law. 3, decide on the cause of action. 4, identify all the elements of the cause of action. And 5, ask if you have enough facts to prove the elements of the cause of action. If you keep these 5 rules in your head at all times, whenever you're analysing something, you'll be a better drafter. And then anything you're drafting apart from that, any story that the client's telling you, ask, is this story relevant to the cause of action? There's lots of things that people do and it's not relevant, and that's maybe one of the biggest differences between a layman writing up their own case and a lawyer doing it properly. You get rid of all the irrelevant stuff and just concentrate on the facts that are relevant to the cause of action. So ask yourself, can I present this to a judge, this draft that I've come up with? And if not, you need to do more work on it. I mean, is it probable? Do you believe it? If not, do you have to do some work on it until you do? You must write with a purpose then. You must decide, okay, what am I trying to prove here? What are the cause of action? So that's what I'm trying to write towards. I'm not just writing down the whole story. And you've got the purpose is to get other people to accept your version and not your opponent's. The thing about law is somebody always is going to be up against you saying the opposite. And in many cases, people just use the precedent, they don't think about it. And the defendants just make a bare denial. And when it comes to trial, nobody really knows, the judge doesn't know what the case is about in advance. So it's much better if you draft something that succinctly expresses what the cause of action is, that you can put a summary at the beginning of your pleadings or your affidavit that can express in summary form what exactly you're saying. And then throughout the draft, you will have headings which will cover all the points you have to make. Sometimes they're the elements of the cause of action. For example, the headings in an interdict might be clear right, balance of convenience, no other remedy, and whatever the other one is, I can't remember offhand, but you will have headings for these 4 things that you need to prove for an interdict. For a contract, it might be breach, you fulfilled your obligations, that there was a contract, and there are your headings, and you prove these things under each of these headings. That's a good way to proceed. And your summary, you say, this is a case about, and in a summary form, the judge already knows what you're actually saying. Or this defence is about. The essence of this defence is. And as I've said before, you've got to identify the cause of action clearly. First decide, is this a contract case? Is it a breach of a statute? Is it a negligence case, a delict? And tell your reader what your case is about and your most important points up front in the summary. You're not writing as a novelist. You're not trying to keep people in suspense. You're telling them up front what the case is about. You don't want them to speculate. You must do the work for them to tell them exactly what it is. So, what headings appear in a lot of affidavits and summonses? First of all, the parties. It's almost always at least the first or second heading. The parties is a heading. I usually put them in block capitals but not bold. And then underneath that, you will say who the parties are, and we can talk more about parties later on, but that's a heading. Locus standi. How do you have locus standi to bring the case? If it's another example of headings would be if it's an insolvency case, you're trying to prove insolvency, you say the act of insolvency, and then you explain that, and then the advantage to creditors, and you explain that. So once you've got the headings that you should use, which are usually the elements of the cause of action, you're a long way there. Now, when you're writing, use short paragraphs. Don't try and be very long-winded. As far as you can, use short ones, and then use sub-paragraphs for sub-ideas. Use Arial font, or some people use Calibri, and use 12 or 11 sometimes. But one of these two, don't use 8 or 10 even. And remember that judges read the shorter matters first, and they give the longer ones to junior judges, according to one judge I talked to. So it's better to have the more senior judge looking at your matter, otherwise you might get a random decision, particularly if you think you've got a good matter. So keep it short. Don't attach everything to the file, decide what's relevant. Remember, judges don't want to read long documents, they've got a lot to read. If you make it concise for them, they appreciate that, and you've got them on your side. With respect to footnotes, only use them for the purpose of giving reference to the authorities. Don't make the judge go up and down to see the material aspects of your case. They don't like that. And use shorter sentences, which means use less commas and more full stops. I mean, that's just good, easy communicative writing in general, but it applies to law too. Long sentences need careful construction and sophisticated readers with lots of time on their hands. You don't want to assume that. And then, of course, not ambiguous. Sentences must have only one meaning. And often what you're going to get this stuff as you read back through it. So if you take notes on what I'm saying now, and create a checklist, and then as you read back through the stuff, you'll see, okay, this sentence is too long, this sentence is ambiguous, it could mean two things. When you quote from authorities, particularly in heads of argument, only quote a very short quote. Don't quote the whole thing. You can refer the judge to the long quote if he wants to go to it, but not huge long things, just a pithy sentence or something, and then you can pick up the rest. Yeah, so make your points brief and give references. So as you go through, you can say, point, this thing is true, as is clear from Annexure 4 on page 26, paragraph 9 as marked with a star. So the judge can just go there quickly, look at where you've marked it with a star, says, oh yes, that is true, and come back. With heads of argument, it's the same. You put your legal point, and you might say, as is clear from case whatever on page 26 or whatever of this document, at paragraph 6 or whatever, as marked by a star or something like that. And then immediately you can go to wherever, or judges will often ask you this in court if you don't do it. They'll say, well, where is that? And then you'll need to find it for them. So if you don't know where it is, it makes things a bit chaotic. And you'll be stressed when you're standing before that judge. Magistrates apparently almost never look up references. They've just got too many cases, too little time. Judges do sometimes, in the High Court, according to judges I've spoken to. Use the active voice rather than the passive voice. Google that if you don't know what I mean. And use must, not must or will, not shall. Shall's ambiguous. We use it in South Africa in a strange way. If you say must do this or will do this, it's better. Obviously get all the facts before you issue the summons and start the matter. A lot of people issue a very rough summons, and then when it comes to trial they have to amend because the facts that have come out are very different, and that just causes more costs and more trouble in the end. Okay, so I think that's enough for just now. We'll return to this subject a little bit later. Thank you.